The planet was supposed to be empty. That was what Ethan believed when his ship crashed into the endless desert. The scanners showed no cities, no signals, no life. Only sand, broken mountains, and silence that felt older than time itself. For 2 days, he walked alone under a pale sky, searching for parts to repair his ship. The wind never stopped blowing. It carried dust across the ground like the planet was trying to erase every footprint he left behind. Then he saw it. A massive structure stood far away in the desert. At first, Ethan thought it was a mountain. But as he moved closer, he realized it was something else. A temple. It was larger than anything humans had ever built. Giant stone pillars reached into the sky, covered in strange symbols that glowed faintly under the sand. Half of the structure was buried, as if the planet itself had tried to hide it. Ethan hesitated. Empty planets did not have temples. Still, curiosity pushed him forward. Humans had always explored the unknown. That was how they survived. The entrance was open. Cold air flowed from inside, carrying a low humming sound. The moment Ethan stepped through the doorway, the temperature dropped. His footsteps echoed through the dark halls. The walls were covered with carvings. Giant figures stood in the images, tall and powerful, kneeling before a single woman. She was shown sleeping, surrounded by light, while shadows gathered below her. Ethan frowned. A guardian, he whispered to himself. The deeper he walked, the stronger the humming became. Lights slowly turned on as he passed, reacting to his movement. The temple was not dead. It was waiting. After several minutes, he reached a massive circular chamber and stopped. At the center of the room stood a stone platform. On it lay a giant woman, perfectly still, as if frozen in time. Her body was covered in smooth crystal armor, and long silver hair rested around her like flowing water. Her eyes were closed. She looked alive. Ethan's heart beat faster. This was impossible. The planet had shown no life signs. He stepped closer carefully. Strange symbols glowed around the platform, forming a circle. The air felt heavy, charged with energy. "Okay," he muttered, definitely not touching anything. But as he turned to leave, his foot brushed against a broken piece of metal on the floor. It slid forward and struck a small control pillar beside the platform. The reaction was instant. The chamber shook violently. Lights flashed across the walls. Ancient machines woke from sleep, their deep sounds echoing through the temple. Ethan stumbled back. No, no, no. The glowing symbols around the platform began to move. Energy spread across the stone like flowing water. Cracks of light formed around the giant woman's body. Then she breathed. The sound was slow and deep, like someone waking after a very long dream. Ethan froze. The crystal armor dissolved into light. The giant woman's fingers moved slightly. Dust fell from the ceiling as the entire temple trembled. Her eyes opened. They glowed softly, silver and ancient. For a moment, she simply stared at the ceiling, as if remembering where she was. Then her gaze slowly lowered until it found Ethan standing below. The air became completely still. Ethan felt suddenly small, like the entire world was watching him. The giant woman studied his face with quiet confusion. Then something changed in her expression. Recognition. Relief. She spoke, her voice soft but powerful enough to fill the chamber. "You finally came after all this time." Ethan blinked. "I think you have the wrong person." She slowly sat up, chains of light breaking away from her arms as she moved. The symbols around the platform faded one by one. "No," she said calmly. The temple would not wake for anyone else. Before Ethan could respond, the ground shook again, stronger this time. A deep sound echoed from somewhere far below the chamber. Not mechanical, alive. The giant woman's expression changed instantly. Her calm disappeared, replaced by sudden fear. "That cannot be," she whispered. The humming sound turned into a loud warning tone. Red light spread across the walls. Something beneath the temple had awakened too. Ethan looked toward the dark passage leading deeper underground. A low growl echoed from below, shaking the floor under his feet. He slowly looked back at the giant woman. "What did you just wake up?" he asked. She met his eyes, her voice barely above a whisper. Not me. The temple lights flickered, and somewhere in the darkness below them, something massive began to move. The warning sound spread through the temple like a heartbeat. Red light flashed across the walls, and dust fell from the ceiling as the ground trembled again. Ethan stepped back from the platform, his eyes fixed on the giant woman. She stood slowly now, her movements careful, like someone waking after a very long sleep. Even standing still, she was taller than the temple gates. She looked toward the dark tunnel below the chamber. Her expression was no longer calm. "It is waking," she said quietly. Ethan swallowed. "What is waking?" The giant woman did not answer immediately. Instead, she closed her eyes for a moment, as if listening to something far away. When she opened them again, fear was clear in her face. "The prison is failing." The words made Ethan's chest tighten. "This place isn't a temple." "No," she said. "It is a lock." Another deep sound echoed from below. This time the floor cracked slightly, thin lines spreading across the stone. Ethan looked around nervously. "Okay, that sounds very bad." The giant woman stepped down from the platform. The glowing symbols faded completely as her feet touched the ground. For a moment, she seemed unsteady, but she quickly regained balance. "I'm Lyra," she said, "last guardian of this world." Ethan hesitated before answering. "Ethan, definitely not a guardian." Lyra studied him closely, her silver eyes moving across his face like she was searching for something. "The temple chose you," she said. "That means you were meant to be here." Ethan shook his head. "No, my ship crashed. That's all." Lyra looked confused, as if the idea of accident did not exist to her. Before she could respond, the temple shook again. A loud metallic sound echoed from below, followed by something heavy dragging across stone. Ethan felt the vibration through his boots. "Whatever is down there," he said. "It sounds big." Lyra turned toward the lower passage. "It has waited longer than I have." She began walking, and Ethan quickly followed, keeping distance between them. The hallway ahead was massive, built for giants. Broken statues lined the walls, all showing warriors fighting a shadow-like creature. "What happened to your people?" Ethan asked. Lyra's voice became quieter. "They chose to end themselves." Ethan stopped walking. "What?" "To keep it sealed," she said. "The creature feeds on energy, on life. My people use their own power to lock it away." The realization hit Ethan slowly. This entire planet was empty because of one sacrifice. "And you stayed behind?" he asked. "I was placed in sleep," Lyra answered, "to wake when the seal weakened." Another violent shake interrupted her words. Sparks fell from the ceiling as ancient machines struggled to stay active. They reached a large door, half broken, leading deeper underground. A faint red glow leaked through the opening. Ethan peered inside and immediately stepped back. The chamber below was enormous. At its center stood a massive structure of chains and energy beams. Most of them were broken. Something had pushed against them from inside. The air felt heavy. "Wrong." Lyra's hands tightened into fists. "It is stronger than before." A low sound rose from the darkness. Not a roar, not a machine. Something between both. Ethan felt fear crawl up his spine. "Can you stop it?" Lyra hesitated. "I do not know." That answer scared him more than anything else. Suddenly, one of the remaining energy chains snapped with a loud crack. The entire chamber shook. A massive shadow moved behind the broken seal, too large to fully see. Ethan stumbled back. "Yeah, that's definitely not good." Lyra stepped forward, placing herself between Ethan and the chamber. "You should leave this world," she said firmly. "This is not your burden." Ethan looked at her, surprised. "You just said the temple chose me." Her eyes softened slightly. "And I was wrong to believe destiny always brings salvation." Another chain shattered. The red glow grew brighter. Something began pushing upward, slowly rising from the darkness. Ethan's heart pounded. His ship was still outside. He could run. He could leave this dying planet behind. But as he looked at Lyra standing alone before the broken prison, he realized something. She had been alone for centuries. And now the thing she guarded was finally free. The creature's shape began to form inside the light, massive and moving. Lyra whispered under her breath, almost like a prayer. "It remembers us." The ground split open with a deafening sound, and the prison finally broke. The sound of breaking stone filled the underground chamber. Dust and pieces of metal fell from above as the last energy chains snapped one by one. The red light grew stronger, turning the walls into shadows. Ethan stepped back, his heart racing. The thing inside the prison was rising slowly, its shape still unclear, but its presence felt heavy, like the air itself was afraid. Lyra raised her hand, and a faint shield of light appeared in front of them. Her face was calm, but Ethan could see the strain in her eyes. "It is not fully awake yet," she said. "We still have time." "Time for what?" Ethan asked. "To stop it again." Another loud impact shook the chamber. A massive claw-like shape pushed through the broken seal, covered in dark energy that moved like smoke. The creature did not roar. It only breathed, and every breath made the walls tremble. Ethan forced himself to think. Panic would not help. "There has to be a control system," he said. "Something that powered the seal." Lyra looked at him. "The temple responds to intelligence. That is why it woke when you arrived." Ethan blinked. "So, it's not strength, it's interaction?" She nodded. That was something he understood. They moved quickly through a side corridor while the creature struggled behind them. The temple lights flickered as ancient systems tried to restart. Symbols glowed along the walls, reacting to Ethan's presence. "This way," Lyra said, guiding him toward a smaller chamber filled with broken consoles and floating energy panels. Ethan stared at the alien controls. Most of it made no sense, but patterns were familiar. Power flows, energy routes, safeguards. "Your people built this like a network," he muttered. "Multiple systems connected together." Lyra watched him carefully. "You understand it?" "Not fully," Ethan admitted. "But humans fix things all the time that weren't made for us." Behind them, a deep crash echoed through the temple. The creature had broken free from the main chamber. The floor shook harder now. Ethan worked quickly, touching different panels. Some responded, lighting up with symbols. Others remained dark. Slowly, parts of the temple began to react. Energy moved again through old channels. A faint hum returned. "The seal needs power," Ethan said. "But the temple is almost dead." Lyra lowered her head slightly. "Because my people are gone." Their energy fed the system. Ethan paused. That meant only one thing. "You're the last power source." She did not answer. Another roar echoed, closer this time. The creature was moving through the halls, tearing through walls instead of following paths. Ethan's hands tightened. There has to be another way. Lyra looked at him with quiet sadness. Guardians are not meant to survive forever. For a moment, Ethan said nothing. Then he shook his head. "No, that's not how humans do things." He rerouted energy from damaged sections of the temple, shutting down non-essential systems. Lights went dark in distant corridors, but power returned to the main seal controls. The hum grew louder. Lyra watched in surprise. "You are sacrificing parts of the temple." "Yeah," Ethan said. "Better to lose pieces than everything." The ground exploded behind them as a massive shadow crashed through the corridor wall. The creature's form finally became visible, enormous, covered in shifting darkness, its body barely solid. Its glowing eyes locked on Lyra. "It remembers the Guardian," she whispered. The creature moved forward, slow but unstoppable. The air grew colder with every step. Ethan slammed his hand onto the final control panel. Energy surged through the temple, forming new light chains in the distance. But they were weak. "It's not enough," he said. "The system can hold it only for a short time." Lyra stepped forward, her light shield forming again. "Then we use that time." Ethan grabbed her arm. "No, you said your people died doing this. I'm not letting you do the same." She looked down at him, surprised by his anger. "Why?" she asked softly. "This world is not yours." Ethan looked at the shaking walls, the failing systems, and the creature moving closer. "Because leaving people to die when you can help, that's not human." For the first time, Lyra smiled slightly. But the moment broke as the creature struck the ground, shattering the newly formed chains. The temple alarm screamed again. The seal was failing faster than before, and Ethan realized the truth. The temple was never meant to last forever. The creature was going to escape. The temple was falling apart. Stone cracked above them, and pieces of the ceiling crashed to the floor. The red warning lights flashed faster now, and the sound of collapsing halls echoed through the darkness. The creature moved closer, its heavy steps shaking the ground with every movement. Ethan pulled Lyra back as another energy chain shattered behind them. "We can't hold it like this," he said, breathing hard. "The system is too weak." Lyra watched the creature in silence. Her expression was calm again, but this time Ethan understood why. She had already made a decision. "There is one way left," she said quietly. Ethan already knew what she meant. "No, the final seal," Lyra continued. "If I return my energy to the core, the prison will close again. And you die," Ethan said. She did not deny it. The creature let out a deep sound that vibrated through the walls. Darkness spread across the chamber, swallowing the remaining light. The temple was running out of time. "This was always my purpose," Lyra said softly. "I was created to guard this place." Ethan shook his head. "That's not purpose. That's a sentence." Lyra looked down at him, surprised by his words. "For centuries," she said, "I waited for someone to come. I believed it would be a warrior, someone strong enough to finish this." Another explosion shook the ground. The creature struck again, breaking through another barrier. "But instead," she continued, "the temple woke for you." Ethan met her eyes. "Because humans don't follow old plans." He quickly moved back to the control system, forcing damage panels to stay active. Energy readings flashed wildly. The temple still had power, just not enough to rebuild the old seal. Unless something changed. Ethan's mind raced. "The temple uses energy patterns," he said suddenly. "Your people powered it with their life force. But that's not the only energy here." Lyra frowned slightly. "Explain." Ethan pointed at the failing systems. "The creature feeds on energy. That means it's producing energy too. If we redirect it, you want to use the creature itself to power the seal," Lyra finished. "It's risky," Ethan admitted. "Very risky." The creature slammed into the chamber again, its massive form forcing its way closer. The air grew colder, and the lights flickered wildly. Lyra looked at Ethan for a long moment. "You refuse sacrifice," she said. "I refuse pointless sacrifice," he corrected. For the first time in centuries, uncertainty crossed her face. Everything she knew told her to finish her duty and end the threat. But Ethan was offering something different, a new path. The creature roared, louder this time, as if sensing their plan. Darkness spread across the floor, reaching toward them. Lyra stepped beside Ethan instead of in front of him. "Tell me what to do," she said. Together, they activated the remaining systems. Ethan rerouted power channels, while Lyra used her energy to hold the creature in place. Light chains formed again, weaker but faster, wrapping around the creature's body. The temple shook violently as energy flowed in new directions. "It's working," Ethan said, surprised. But the system began to overload almost immediately. Warning symbols flashed everywhere. "The temple cannot contain this much power," Lyra warned. Ethan gritted his teeth. "Then we don't contain it. We redirect it." The plan formed in seconds. Instead of sealing the creature permanently, they would trap it in a continuous energy loop, feeding its own power back into the prison. The creature struggled harder, smashing pillars and walls as the light chains tightened. The entire temple began to collapse around them. Lyra looked at Ethan, her silver eyes filled with something new. "Hope, you changed the future," she said quietly. Ethan gave a tired smile. "Humans do that sometimes." The energy reached critical levels. Light filled the chamber, blinding and intense. The final moment had come. Either the new seal would hold, or everything would be destroyed. Light swallowed the chamber. Energy rushed through the temple like a storm, shaking every wall and pillar. The creature fought against the chains of light, its massive body twisting as power flowed around it in violent waves. The ground cracked beneath Ethan's feet, and pieces of stone fell into the glowing abyss below. "It's too much," Ethan shouted over the noise. "The system can't hold." Lyra stood beside him, her hands raised, silver light flowing from her body into the temple systems. Her face showed pain, but she did not step back. "The loop is forming," she said. "Do not stop now." The creature roared, its voice shaking the air itself. Darkness pushed against the light, trying to break free. For a moment, it looked like the chains would snap again. Ethan forced himself to focus. The control panel in front of him flickered, symbols changing too fast to read. Human technology was simple compared to this, but the idea was the same: balance the flow, or everything burns out. He redirected the final energy lines. Instead of forcing the creature down, the system began pulling its energy back into itself. The light chains tightened, feeding on the creature's own power. The more it struggled, the stronger the prison became. The roar slowly turned into a deep, angry vibration. Then suddenly, silence. The light faded to a steady glow. The creature stopped moving, trapped inside a spinning field of energy that fed endlessly into itself. The new seal held. Ethan collapsed to one knee, breathing hard. The alarm stopped. The shaking slowed. For the first time since entering the temple, everything became still. "We did it," he whispered. Lyra lowered her hand slowly. The silver light around her faded, but she remained standing. She looked toward the sealed chamber, disbelief in her eyes. "For centuries," she said softly, "we believed sacrifice was the only answer." Ethan stood again, exhausted but smiling slightly. Sometimes the problem isn't strength. It's thinking differently. A loud crack echoed above them. The ceiling began to collapse again. "Yeah," Ethan added quickly. "And sometimes we should leave before everything falls on us." They ran through the temple corridors as stone fell behind them. Ancient systems shut down one by one, their purpose finally complete. Sunlight appeared ahead as they reached the main entrance. They stepped outside just as part of the temple collapsed into the sand behind them. Dust rose into the sky, covering the ruins that had stood for thousands of years. The desert became quiet again. Lyra turned back, watching the fallen temple in silence. The wind moved through her silver hair as she stood free under the open sky for the first time in centuries. "My duty is over," she said quietly. Ethan nodded. "So what happens now?" She looked at the horizon, where Ethan's damaged ship rested in the distance. "For the first time," she said, "I may choose." Days passed as Ethan repaired his ship. Lyra helped, learning quickly, curious about everything. She asked questions constantly about humans, about stars, about worlds beyond this empty planet. When the ship was finally ready, Ethan stood at the ramp and looked back at her. "You don't have to stay here," he said. Lyra looked at the silent desert, then back at him. A small smile appeared on her face. "I waited centuries for someone to arrive," she said. "It would be strange to stop now." The ship lifted into the sky, leaving the ruins behind. Below them, the planet slowly disappeared into clouds and light. Inside the cockpit, Lyra watched the stars with quiet wonder. "Your kind is small," she said softly, "but you refuse endings." Ethan smiled as the ship entered orbit. "Yeah," he said, "that's kind of our thing." And as the stars stretched endlessly before them, the last guardian of an ancient world finally stepped into a new future, not as a prisoner of duty, but as a traveler beside humanity. The end.